going, everyone? It's Chad here from Lou Tunes, and we have returned from our romp through the world of anime, and now it's time to dive back into some good old Western animation. Gretel, how you doing today? How you been? It's been way too long.
I'm doing great, Chad. I've just returned from the Bach Talman concert.
I think you mean Tal Bachman. I think you got it a little bit switched there.
No, I mean Bach Talman. It's a Tal Bachman cover band.
Oh, okay, well, that's weird. But anyways, today we are tackling a topic that you guys picked. A while back on my Facebook page, I asked you guys which countdown topic you would most like to see done as a full-scale video. And the winner was the top 10 saddest cartoon deaths.
You've got quite a morbid fan base, haven't you?
Well, that may be so, Gretel, but all the same, it's a pretty interesting topic, and we've certainly got a lot to cover. But before we get into it, I think I should change into something more, fitting. Yeah, that's more like it. So, now that we got our new digs on, let's have a quick cheers and a look at the rules.
Cheers!
So, as we often do, we are seeing a few of the honorable mentions for this list, and as we do that, I just want to implore everyone to keep in mind that this is a list about sad deaths, so shocking and or memorable deaths, such as this one. Yeah, they're not really gonna apply for this list. So with that, I'd like to get into the countdown with one last special honorable mention. In the initial ideation stages of this list, Bambi's mother was an easy pick. However, when I rewatched the movie, I realized a few things. The first was that I don't really even like Bambi, just as a movie. I think it's much weaker than many of its contemporaries, and if you're a younger viewer and or haven't seen a lot of the 40s era Disney movies, well, I'd recommend one of these far before I'd recommend Bambi. That's just me, of course. Now, the second thing I realized was that Bambi's mom just wasn't really a character. There was nothing to her. She just sat around spouting off such stock parental lines as,
Bambi, my little Bambi.
Or this one.
Go on, say hello.
Wow, what a classic. Look, the point is, there's no denying how iconic this death scene is, but it genuinely isn't that sad in my opinion. We don't even see her get shot or die. I'm not saying we need to see her get blasted in the neck Mononoke style, but all you get is the gunshot, Bambi looking for her for a bit, and then his father walks off with him after saying some random stuff. No dying words, no goodbyes, and barely a reaction from Bambi. We're only left with the cold reality that deer are shot all the time. Iconic? Yes. Sad? Not nearly as much as the 10 other picks I've got in store. And you know what? We never technically saw her body, so Bambi's mom could be off on some deer island somewhere, sipping on a grass martini. Still some dirt in this one.
The autumn days grow short and cold. It's Christmas time again.
If we're talking about final departing words, none have done it better than Charlotte. The 1973 film, based on the 1952 book, was one of those movies I always had kicking around on VHS as a kid, but I recall it being too depressing to watch more than once. In the story, Charlotte saves the new pig Wilbur from being slaughtered by spinning a web which says, "Some pig," above his stall. This stirred the townsfolk into a fit, calling it divine intervention and making Wilbur far too important of a pig to slaughter, and keeping him from landing between the buns of a delicious Arby's sandwich. Of course, plenty more happens in the film, and it's actually a really good story of friendship, but after saving Wilbur, Charlotte has reached the end of her road. Nothing really in particular kills her, but a slightly haunting speech she gives about the brief nature of life and a spider's life in particular give us the idea that, well, she's a spider and her lifespan is quite short. But because she was able to touch and save Wilbur's life, she dies in peace knowing she sort of became bigger than herself, and she slowly slips away, all while singing a song.
It seems I have quite an audience. Thank you all. I'm grateful to have the chance to say goodbye.
The 90s X-Men cartoon comes to a close in its 5th season with a bang. Professor X is attacked with some kind of energy disruptor, bringing him dangerously close to death. And though the gang attempts to save him with some unorthodox methods involving Gandalf, ultimately the efforts are in vain and his death becomes imminent. Now, I believe a lot of what makes a character's death sad isn't just the very death itself, but how that death affects the characters left behind. In this case, the team nature of the X-Men and the fact that Xavier is a mentor and father figure to these young mutants is what makes this heartbreaking. He taught these mutants about equality and how to use their powers for good. And even as he slips away, he gives some wise final words to each team member.
My beautiful storm, mighty as a hurricane, gentle as a summer rain, you honor me with your friendship. Wolverine, loner, you have found a family. Wild savage, you have found dignity. Cynic, you have found faith.
But perhaps most interesting were his final words to Jubilee.
And finally, Jubilee, your powers are largely worthless. And as a mutant, you've failed me on basically every level. Also, everyone finds you terribly annoying. That is all.
Anyways, with that, he slips away. You almost can't believe your eyes seeing this teacher and father figure passing away in a Saturday morning cartoon. For about 45 seconds, until he is somewhat resurrected by some kind of Deus Ex Machina type thing, and told that the only way he can survive is by being taken to the Shi'ar Empire. So, though he didn't stay dead for long, Xavier is still taken from Earth permanently, leaving the very X-Men he created to wonder, what next? Of course, if you ask me, this would have been much stronger had they just kept him dead. But killing off animated television characters is a difficult thing to pull off.
And we're staying together.
Oh, Debbie, I like that very much.
Poor old Ray. Disney went and they killed the lovable side character. It was actually pretty shocking. So shocking, in fact, that I included his death in my top 10 jaw-dropping Disney moments video. So if you'd like to see further discussion about the death of Ray, well, you should check out that video. I'm sure you'll like it. Damn! He ain't gonna be in Frogger 2.
Dear sweet little foot, do you remember the way to the Great Valley?
I guess so. But why do I have to know you're gonna be with me?
Long before the Land Before Time series became known for unwatchable sequels and way too many of them. What? Yes, long before that, there was an actual good Land Before Time movie, directed by Don Bluth and produced by Steven Spielberg. And, George Lucas. It was charming, fun, and genuinely enjoyable, unlike the last animated George Lucas film I watched. Look, ultimately, you can't blame them for the sequels. I mean, the characters were so likable that people just seemed to keep wanting to see them, I guess. And if the money and demand is there, then I guess make more? No, I take it back, I take it back! But through its many sequels, there was one prominent character who never made it out of the first movie, Littlefoot's mom. Now I know what you're saying. How is Littlefoot's mom and Bambi's mom any different? Well, for starters, how about tail whipping a T-Rex off a cliff? That's not good enough for you. Well, fine. Littlefoot's mother may have been a similar sort of stock mother character, but in this film, we see her pass away. We watch her fight through an earthquake to save her only child, and sustain grievous T-Rex wounds in the process. And Littlefoot is with her as she goes, making this death much more heart-wrenching. And let me know if any of you are with me on this one, but watching dinosaurs injured or in pain is somehow worse than other things. Hey, if you ask me, old Ma Littlefoot should be glad she's dead. Then she didn't have to live through the likes of Land Before Time 11, Invasion of the Tiny Sauruses.
As high as souls can fly, the clouds roll by for you.
One of my favorite production stories in animation comes from two beloved 80s tunes. G.I. Joe, of course a personal favorite of mine, and Transformers. In the mid-80s, Marvel's Sunbow set out to make feature-length animated films of these two prized properties, both in production at roughly the same time. The G.I. Joe team went a bit more bold with their script and planned to kill off the lead Joe Duke in their film. The Transformers team, hearing of this and not wanting to be outdone, developed a storyline where Optimus Prime would die as well. The Transformers film released first to audiences, and, well, the death of Optimus Prime was not well received. And thusly, the Joes team tacked on a scene to their near-finished film where Duke didn't die. He was only in a coma. So, due to their relation to one another, I'm doing sort of a duo entry with this one. Let's start with Duke. Now, we could be here all day if I recap the plots to both the G.I. Joe and Transformers animated movies. So I will simply say this. If any fictional character was a role model for me growing up, it was Duke. He's not the general of the Joes, but he's essentially the leader. Honor, bravery, and a rock-solid right hook are his bread and butter. Oh, and if you were wondering, yes, this is an episode where the Joes fight ghosts. So, there's that.
You are being attacked by ghosts. Your weapons are useless against them.
Back to the film. In one of the final battles, Duke takes one of Serpentor's snake spears straight to his heart as he saves his idiot half-brother Falcon's life. And I don't think any kid wants to see this happen to their role model. Oh, and you can redub the scenes and say he's in a coma all you want.
You don't expect us to believe that.
Exactly, Duke. Last time I checked, having a snake spear bite you in the heart and explode with blood, yeah, that's a guaranteed mortal wound. You could see from the tears in the other Joe's eyes that this was clearly animated as a death scene. But Duke goes out in classic form, asking his idiot brother to be a credit to his country. And his very final words couldn't be any more perfect. Yo, Joe. But Duke never technically died, so the spots got to go to his Hasbro brother, Optimus Prime.
What? No.
No, it's true, Mark, it's true. Now, as time has passed, Prime has become almost known for dying. He even died in the live-action movies. Now, I myself am not a hardcore fanboy of the original Transformers stuff, but when watching this film through, this death hits very, very hard as well. Prime suffers a mortal wound from the fight with Megatron, and much like Duke, seeing this respected leader die is really tough.
And use the power of the Matrix to light our darkest hour.
Surrounded by his comrades, we see the lights fade from his eyes and the very color from his body. It's when these larger-than-life leader-type characters die that something just feels wrong and horrible. Of course, he was resurrected pretty quickly due to the backlash, but like I said, it's very tough to kill characters out of animated shows.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, so... you know... thanks for not giving up on me.
Okay, so many of you know I wasn't quite as big of a fan of Big Hero 6 as some others. But hey, I still really enjoyed it, so give me a break. One issue for me was, I felt like the best character was killed off. I mean, during my first viewing, I held out hope that the masked man would end up being Tadashi somehow. But nope, it was just this guy. But back to Tadashi, hard to pinpoint exactly what it is about this guy, but he was just so damn likable. His series of clumsy video trials with Baymax was certainly one of my favorite scenes. And being that he and Hiro's parents are dead, he helped raise Hiro as a brother and friend. But alas, Tadashi must be the good guy hero that he is and rush back into a burning building filled with unstable science stuff. And... the toll it takes on Hiro is, well, depressing. But the heart of the movie, I think, comes from the idea that Baymax is kind of the final remnant of Tadashi that Hiro has.
Are you satisfied with your care?
Please! No! Disney has honed their craft when it comes to the killing likable characters game, only second to George R.R. Martin. But not to worry, I hear in their upcoming 2016 animated film, they'll be killing the lead character Moana off in the first scene with a shotgun blast to the face. It sounds a bit violent, but I'm sure they'll make it work.
Pick up!
Well. Looks like How to Train Your Dragon 2 is coming out ahead of Big Hero 6. All biases aside though, Stoic's death in How to Train Your Dragon 2 is crushing. In lots of film deaths, a character will die to set motion to a plot of some sort. For instance, how will the character adapt to the death of a parent or loved one? How will they rise to the occasion? Stoic's death, however, feels much more in the vein of an anime or something. The movie could have wrapped up in about the same way had he lived through, but having him sacrifice himself just adds this extra emotional sting that lets us into the humanity of the world a lot more. This death also hits hard because of how it goes down. Toothless, the cutest, well-meaning creature you can think of, is hypnotized and becomes temporarily capable of some terrible things, including, but not limited to, killing his own best friend. Of course, he didn't end up killing Hiccup because his father dashes in front to save him. There's something outstandingly poetic about the idea that we spent an entire film with Stoic watching him learn that dragons don't have to be killed and that they can be trained. He came full circle on that idea, and in the end, he is gunned down by the very creatures he spent his whole life hunting and had only just forgiven. And the way that Toothless is innocently unaware of what he's done just makes this whole thing even harder to take in.
Go on, get out of here! Get away!
It's a supremely well-crafted death, and certainly not just for shock value. I mean, just as Hiccup's family was coming back together, it's thrown back into disarray, and it's just terrible. but it was effective, and it elevates that series for me from just a money-making cash grab sequel to a trilogy or saga where I really want to see what happens next. So I can't wait to see where it goes from here. "11 minutes and 33 seconds. That's all it takes for Up to create one of the most memorable romances in any film. It's damn impressive. And kind of funny that people, including myself, are more on about this opening 12 minutes than the actual rest of the movie. But it's for good reason. When Carl meets Ellie, they find a very simple common ground. And watching these two kids bond over their love for exploration, it just melts your heart. And Carl saying next to nothing the whole time emanates this vibe like, I am so damn lucky to be with this girl, which is simply adorable. And as they age and age, their dream of having kids never became a reality, and on top of that, they never pursued their dreams of exploration either. So watching Ellie stumble up the hill and eventually pass on, it's just tragic. It's like these two never really caught their break. And that's where the rest of Up comes in, of course. And the movie itself is by no means bad, but those first 11 and a half minutes are simply masterful. Masterful and heartbreaking. Hey, do you guys remember that time when Scar tricked Simba into waiting in the ravine right before a massive stampede came in? And then Mufasa dove in to save him and almost made it out, but then Scar clawed his hands, forcing him to fall and be crushed by wildebeest? Oh, you do remember that? All of you? Dang. Well, then I guess there's not much for me to say. But I will say this. Even beyond animation, Mufasa's death is arguably one of the most memorable death scenes in any film. I mean, it left people scarred. No. When it comes to death scenes, the convention is that the character gives some parting words before they slip away. But Simba didn't get that luxury. He was just kind of left to prod at his father in hopes that he might wake up.
You gotta get up. Dad.
Look, Mufasa went out in a blaze of heroic glory. And on the bright side, Simba did get to see him again. Kinda. Cool, Cloud Dad.
Now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
So, we've seen some heartbreakers for sure, but for the number one spot, I'm doing something I've never done before on a countdown and calling a tie for number one. One of the picks is a completely biased pick that really just applies to me and probably won't connect with a lot of people. The other pick is more of an objective overall pick, which I just think has to have the number one title. So, let's do it.
You sure you don't want to take your jacket off? It's pretty warm. Hey, look who has some visitors. Ooh, what a lucky little man. We'll be right outside if you need us, Kenny.
South Park is simply a polarizing show. Some people just hate it, perhaps for its crude humor or its lack of real animation prowess, or the fact that the same two guys do nearly all of the voices. But for me, and many others of course, South Park is one of the best animated shows on television and has been for a long time. And I'd like to talk about the Season 5 episode, Kenny Dies. The 5th season, of course, is relatively pretty early on for South Park, now 18 seasons deep. But what they accomplished with this episode, I think, is really something else. South Park is set up perfectly for a scenario like this. Kenny dying in South Park is one of the most famous ongoing gags in any comedy TV series. He dies in crazy and ridiculous ways, and Kyle and Stan say,
"Oh my god, they've killed Kenny! You bastards!"
And like magic, he's always back for the next episode. So in this episode, when Kenny is diagnosed with a terminal illness, the thought is, big whoop, nothing new here. But as the episode goes, we realize that this might be for real. We see sides of these beloved characters that we've never seen before, and it's so sad seeing this gang lose one of their own.
Stan, where are you going? I just can't. Dude, he needs us right now. I can't see him like that, Kyle. All those hoses and wires. He's a kid, dude. He's supposed to be running around and laughing.
They even include a tremendously sad score. Lest we forget, Matt and Trey don't mess around when it comes to music. The South Park movie was a full-blown musical, and they even have a Tony Award for their musical, The Book of Mormon. Oh, and this.
Everyone has
And with this episode, unlike X-Men or Transformers or even Family Guy, they kept Kenny dead for a year, long enough to really feel him missing. As I've been saying, it's tough to kill characters on TV because people want these characters around as the show moves forward, so the South Park guys are to be applauded for that restraint. One last thing I'll gush about for this episode is a scene and even a line of dialogue that makes me tear up just about every time I watch it. As Kenny's life winds down, Cartman goes in to speak his final piece. And we are let in on a relationship between these two characters that I just love.
Stan and Kyle have always sort of been two best friends, you know, and... Well, I don't know if I ever told you this, Kenny, but, I kind of always thought you were my best friend. I don't know.
Okay, we're gonna need to give Kenny some time to sleep now.
Don't you worry, Kenny. I'm gonna find a cure for you. Everything's gonna be okay.
Later on in the same episode, it's revealed that Cartman was just using Kenny's sickness for the betterment of some scheme he had going, but behind closed doors, there was no need for Cartman to say the stuff that he did to Kenny. So even 18 seasons in, you really can't find a moment of Cartman being more genuine about a friend that he truly cares about. Because the truth is that these two kids know about being the butt of the jokes and maybe a bit lower on the scale than their friends Stan and Kyle. And that's why I love this scene and this episode so much. Of course, that's just me. We've still got a whole other number one spot to talk about.
No following.
I love you.
This movie, in my mind, it's like an everybody loves this movie kind of movie, right? I mean, I don't really know, but I just assume everyone loves it. And if you haven't seen it, for God's sake, pause the video and go watch it. Enjoy the animation. Yeah, that's right. I said animation. There's not a lot of other stuff that looks quite like this movie. It has care put into it. You can feel the animation in play. Weird facial expressions, bizarre hand and body positions. It's a joy to look at. Not to mention an overlooked home run performance from Shooter McGavin actor Christopher McDonald as the snoopy FBI agent Wes Mansley. Seriously, this guy's voice performance must have been like Christmas to these animators, who were meticulously pulling facial expressions from each vocal cue.
What am I talking about? What am I talking about? I'm talking about your gold-armed security, Hogarth! While you're snoozing in your wooded jammies back in Washington, we're wide awake and worried. Why? Because everyone wants what we have, Hogarth. Everyone. You think this middleman is fun, but who built it? The Russians, the Chinese, Martians, Canadians? I don't care!
There's kind of 3 deaths you can do in the movies, right? One is sort of a setup. The character dies, and the story kind of centralizes around the death. The next is kind of the anime stoic style death that I already talked about, where it's just kind of a stinger to let you know that anyone could die. And the third kind is a movie that culminates to a death, something like Of Mice and Men or The Iron Giant. And these movies that build and culminate to one death in the end, they just hit so hard. And Iron Giant is a great example. You know that whole thing of when a foreign being is introduced to the common human world and people just don't understand it, so they want to kill it.
It's still alive! Shoot at it!
It's a tale as old as time, but it always delivers, if done correctly. When Hogarth Hughes, your standard inquisitive and curious young man, discovers a giant robot crash-landed near his house, pure gold ensues as they get to know each other, and Hogarth teaches the giant the general ways of the human world.
No, don't do that. That's the kind of stuff that makes them shoot at you.
Speaking of Hogarth, that whipped cream into the Twinkies thing, yeah, that was something I always wanted to do as a kid, but never had the opportunity. But now that I rewatch this film, it reminds me to do something that the 10-year-old me always wanted to do.
It works!
Anyways, as these things always go, the government finds out about the giant's whereabouts and foolishly lock a giant missile onto his position. And though the giant was clearly designed for war, he implements what he learned with Hogarth. He flies up into space, leading the missile away from the town and his friend Hogarth, in a beautiful scene culminating in the giant's explosive death. Now, much like many of the other characters on this list, a final scene reveals the giant to be assembling himself back together. And though we had seen him do this before, something about this beautiful sacrifice scene had us believing that he wouldn't come back this time. And if you ask me, that's a death scene done perfectly. So there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully this video didn't put you in too sad of a mood, but be sure to let me know down in the comments which moments you found most sad or touching or just downright depressing. Gretel, which moments did you think were most sad? What's your favorite? What really got to you? Gretel? Gretel, where are you? Ha ha ha. Very funny. Gretel! What's this?
Mr. Lewis, due to a continuance of successful ratings on your show, we have deemed Gretel's work with you complete, and thusly, she has been terminated.